Hey everyone, just wanted to give you a quick heads up. The second Global Product Owner Summit is coming soon. You can get all the details at bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. That's bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. And it's all lowercase, all one word. Oh, and stick with us until the end of the episode to know the dates and the tracks that we have for you in this year's summit. But for now, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. This week, joining us from Denmark is Johannes Andersen. Hey, Johannes, welcome to the show.
Hey, Vasco, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Johannes comes from a finance and fintech background and is now an enterprise agility maestro, also known as agile coach, at a leading telco in Copenhagen. He focuses on optimizing the flow from strategy to execution, championing portfolio management with a keen eye on doing the right things, even if imperfectly. And Johannes is also an international speaker on product development topics. In fact, we met at Ordev 2023 in Malmö, Sweden. Johannes, you're going to talk to us today about being a product owner. Then the rest of the week, we will kind of switch roles because you have been both a coach and a product manager. So let's start first with the product owner as we agreed in prep. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how did you end up becoming a product owner?
Yeah, so I love to solve problems. So that's a quick answer to that one. Well, no, I started as a financial advisor with wealthy customers in the Copenhagen area. People were prepping to become the private portfolio customers, the real big shots. So I had that middle tier, and we had a lot of tools and processes on how should we advise these people? How should we help them plan 20, 30 years out in the future with their own companies, their houses, their pensions and everything, and trying to combine that. And I was really frustrated with the tools we used because we had such good training and such good ideas and the tools didn't really support it. And I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on those tools. So someone was noticing that I was frustrated and I was beginning to asking them questions. So at some point someone said, well, instead of complaining, why don't you just come in here and help us make it better? So that's what I did. And I became a product owner of our wealth management and pension planning tools at that bank in Copenhagen and had that role for almost 4 years.
Absolutely. That's often a characteristic of a good product owner, right? Like they take this, how cumbersome certain things are, they take that personally and they really want to improve them. Of course, it might start for themselves, but then ultimately with time and experience, we start thinking about customers because we end up being product owners for products we don't use, obviously, as happens to many of us. But that's the product owner journey. And of course, it's a very interesting journey, something that kind of highlights one of the characteristics we look for in product owners. And product owner role isn't that easy, though. It can be quite tough, right? Even if you start like that with real passion for improving something, it can be quite tough. So let's talk about one of those moments, Johannes. Share with us a moment where you as a product owner, you tried your best, but that time the best just wasn't good enough and we're learning all the time. We'll talk about the learnings in a minute, but tell us that story first, Johannes.
Yeah, so it's really hard to pick one because there's a lot of small errors you make all of the time and you need to learn from. But I can talk about one thing I did that I have talked with people about later to try to explain why that's important to think as a team when you're a product owner. So when I started, I thought that I needed to know all the answers. I needed to be able to explain everything and design the solutions and just have the requirements ready for the development and say, well, build this because that's what we need. And I used to be a user, so I know what I need and know what I would like. But little details matter, and you can't really figure everything out by yourself as a product owner. So I've designed something where I'm an advisor and I have a co-advisor at this meeting. So I'd like to add that to the system. So afterwards you can give a report and say you had a meeting with Johannes and this guy. So I've described how that should be into the detail, we need a drop-down box on this page, locked like that. And luckily I had a good developer saying, why the heck do you want a drop-down box? There's like 300 advisors you could add here. That's going to be a list from hell. and you all call each other by your initials anyway. So why don't you just type that in? I'll give you the answer. Yeah, of course, brilliant. But I didn't think of that. I spent a day trying to figure out how to do that instead of just talking with the developer and doing it as a team. And I think that's one of the things I think many product owners do to start with. They think they need to handle everything themselves, and it is a big role. That's a lot of responsibility. And when you then add that, and you think that you need to do all of the work yourself, well, you're gonna end up sick, basically, with stress or something like that.
And if you don't end up sick, then the development team around you becomes sick because they're sick of you.
Exactly. Someone will be sick at some point.
And actually, that brings an interesting thought, because what you just described, I have seen in so many product owners. They think that no, I have to write the user stories. I mean, it's in the Scrum guide. It isn't, but people think it is. I need to write the user stories. Of course, the development team needs the user stories to be written, and this is why I very often refer to this concept of product ownership being a whole team sport, right? Like everybody needs to contribute. And ironically, I've also heard from many product owners that, I have too much work to do. I have all of these user stories to write. And again, another example of maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe you need to bring the ideas about what needs to be done, get feedback, and then the team writes the stories with you. And then you can share the load of writing those stories, which also improves the communication, right? Because the people who write it understand it better than those who only read them.
Exactly. If I need to really understand something and learn something new, I try to write something about it. I made a few blog posts. Most of them are made because there was a subject I needed to know more about. I needed to learn. So I've written a little post about it, a little article about it, because that makes me clarify things. And that's the way the brain works. It helps us to write things down.
And in fact, what I usually say to product owners, I don't know if you have tried this, but what I usually say to product owners is to make sure that people understand what you want, make sure that you don't touch the keyboard. Somebody else needs to write it. Because if somebody else writes it, then there's evidence that the information went from one brain to the other. But if you write it and just describe it, there's no evidence. Right? Like you can't look at someone and know whether they actually understood. You know that they heard you, maybe, but you don't know if they understood it the same way you expect them to understand. But if they write it down, you can look at what they write and say, that's not what I meant.
Yeah. And I love that, because I actually use that in my training as an agile coach today. When I've explained the concept, my validation of, have you understood what I'm saying, is, can you describe to me what I just said to you? Can you describe it with your own words? What is this concept I've just tried to explain for you?
Yeah, mirroring, right? Like you ask for validation through mirroring. Like they tell you what they heard, and then you understand. And these days, when you work as an enterprise agile coach, also with product, of course, but how do you help product owners understand this? Understand that they don't actually need to write everything down. They don't need to answer all the questions. They just need to work with the team.
Oh yeah, but there's no easy answer to that, because that's personality. That's happening to your personal pride, and when you're new in the role, you have a lot of uncertainty. You want to show that you can do all this. You want to show that you can be a good product owner and take responsibility and do all the stuff. And so that's really getting them out of that bottle and understand that this is not about you. This is about the team. This is about collaboration. This is about creating the things we want to create. It's focusing on the outcomes we want to achieve, and who actually write that. Well, that doesn't really matter as long as we get that outcome. So if we as a team are good at writing user stories, then we are along path along that way of getting there. But I haven't got a trick that just like that will make people change their mind and say, oh, I don't have to write them. People will try to do that.
And absolutely. And I think that you make an excellent point that every product owner will require a slightly different approach. One thing that I have very often tried is to ask them, have you had anyone write your user stories? And usually they say no. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you try it with me? You tell me what you want, I write the user story. Can we go through this process? And usually what happens is that I get a lot of questions up. And that's just because how I think. I've also been a product owner, so I'm also trying to understand the customer perspective and so on. And through that questions, then the product owners typically understand that, oh, there was a lot more information that was needed than what I thought was needed. Right? Especially because we are agile coaches, we go, okay, so let's go through the acceptance criteria. And typically the acceptance criteria many product owners start with is, it works as I defined it. Which is really, of course, not an acceptance criteria. And then let's go through this step by step. If it does this, but it does not do that, is it okay? Exactly. And that conversation kind of opens up how sometimes small things can become huge. And what I tell product owners is that, developers need to break down a user story down to the key stroke. They need to know what key to strike next. We need to be that precise when we are trying to communicate something as specific as a user story. If you're talking about a feature or an epic, that's a different thing. But when we go to the user story level, something a team can transform into running code, we really need to be that specific. And having that mindset of asking questions and so on really helps the product owner kind of snap out of the user perspective description into how should it work so that the user gets the experience that I want.
So I find it useful to try to because the developers need that kind of details to actually code something, to get it concrete, so something you can actually ship out to customers so they can get something and do something. But for the product owner, and to get them out of, I need to describe everything and making that drop down for 500 people or whatever, I try to say, okay, so what is it you want to achieve? Well, I want to be able to add a colleague for this meeting. Okay, then that's what you need to write. Not how you should do it, but what you want out of it. It's more focus on the outcome. And to get there, I find it useful to just use some of the basic tools like the 5 whys. Ask, why do you want that? Why are you asking for a drop-down? Well, because I want to choose it. Okay, but does it have to be drop-down? No, you just need to be able to choose it.
And actually, that's a great insight. If a product owner writes the actual technical solution, we should always ask, why is this technical solution important for you? Because there might be a good reason.
Yeah, there might be.
But usually there isn't. And then we can dive into, okay, but what is then the outcome?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I've had a lot of success also with Mike Burrows. From obstacle to outcome, he has this based on clean language. There's a few questions you can navigate through to do kind of a coaching, but with specific question that's non-biased, where you can kind of lead the conversation. That's a really handy tool to have to use that for coaching.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you have the link to that, do please send it to me, and I'll put the link on the show notes so that people can go and investigate that list of questions. Yes. Johannes, thank you very much for sharing that.
No problem. Loved it.
Hi there, Agile friends. Thank you for sticking around and listening to the details of the Product Owner Summit, this year's global summit dedicated to a critical Scrum role, the product owner role, of course. We'll have some amazing keynotes and 4 tracks filled with first-hand stories and experiences for product owners to learn more about that critical Scrum role. The summit will take place between April 23rd and 25th, so book your calendars. There will be loads of sessions for you to attend. One of the keynotes will be Dave West, the product owner and CEO at Scrum.org, one of the largest Scrum organizations in the world. If you want to know more, check out the details at bit.ly/product owner 2024. That's all one word, all lowercase, bit.ly/product owner 2024. We will also have 4 tracks. The 4 tracks will cover cross-functional product ownership. That's track 1. As Pixar's Ratatouille said, not every idea can be a great idea, but a great idea can come from anywhere. And this quote emphasizes the importance of a product owner being open to all ideas, regardless of the source, and also challenges us to focus on getting good ideas from everywhere and involving the whole team in the product owner role and responsibilities. The second track is designing products for growth, where we explore how to craft products ready for scalable growth, merging practical strategies with innovation. The idea here is to learn to design products for growth, whether it is sales or customer acquisition. The third track is Know Your Users, user-centric approaches for agile development. In this track, we learn to master user-centric techniques in agile development, to deeply understand customer needs and transform insights into meaningful UX designs that focus on engagement and satisfaction. This is a track ideal for innovation-focused agile teams. And the fourth track, one of the most exciting tracks in my opinion, is product development with AI, ideas for product owners. Not only do we discuss about using AI in the products, but also AI for product owners to learn to make a bigger impact with the help of the AI tools that we already have. The Product Owner Summit will also present to you great opportunities to network with your peers. So get your ticket and join our Slack. You can get the ticket and join the Slack at bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. As always, we have free tickets and also the paid tickets that help to support this podcast. So check them out at bit.ly/Product Owner 2024. That's all lowercase, all one word, Product Owner 2024. I'll see you in the summit floor.